Admiral Zektar stood on the bridge of his command station, watching the screens that showed the vast emptiness of space around Nexus Prime. For 400 years, no enemy had dared to challenge this system. The Nexus defense grid was the pride of the Galaxian Empire. 200 warships patrolled the area, and massive orbital platforms bristled with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The Galaxians were a warrior race. Their gray skin was tough as armor, and their 4 arms made them deadly fighters. They had conquered dozens of worlds and never met a species that could match their military might. Admiral Zektar had served for 50 years and had never seen their defenses fail. "Admiral," called his sensor officer, "I'm detecting something strange." Zektar walked over to the sensor station. His second-in-command, General Crix, followed, closely behind. "What is it?" "There's a distortion in space, sir. Something's coming through. But it's not using any jump drive we know." The main screen flickered and showed a ripple in space itself. It looked like water being disturbed, but this was happening in the vacuum of space. The ripple grew larger and brighter. "All ships, battle stations," Zektar ordered. "Unknown contact. Approaching." Across the system, Galaxian warships powered up their weapons. The orbital platforms turned their massive guns toward the distortion. Every soldier and officer prepared for battle. Then it happened. A ship appeared from the ripple, sliding into normal space like it was stepping through a doorway. The vessel was unlike anything in their databases. It was sleek and white, with smooth curves and no visible weapons ports. Strange symbols were painted on its hull. "What kind of ship is that?" General Crix asked. "Unknown design," the sensor officer replied. "It's about the size of a heavy cruiser. I'm reading strange energy signatures from it." Inside the unknown ship, Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, looking at the view screen that showed dozens of alien warships surrounding them. He was a tall man with graying hair and calm blue eyes. He had been exploring space for 20 years and had seen many strange things, but this was his first time meeting a completely new species. "Well, Lisa, looks like we found someone," he said to his first officer. Commander Lisa Hayes was a woman in her 30s with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. She studied the tactical display showing all the alien ships. "Captain, they've got us outnumbered 200 to 1, and they all have weapons pointed at us," added Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker from the tactical station. He was a young man with sandy hair who always seemed ready for a fight. Captain Morrison nodded. "Tony, how are our shields?" Chief Engineer Tony Chen looked up from his station. He was a quiet man who understood machines better than most people understood other people. "Shields are at full power, Captain. Their weapons look primitive compared to ours." "Dr. Foster, can you make sense of their communications?" Dr. Amy Foster was the ship's expert on alien life. She was a small woman with glasses who spent most of her time studying languages and cultures. She listened to the alien chatter coming through the speakers. "They're using multiple radio frequencies. The language is complex, but I'm starting to pick up patterns." On the Galaxian command station, Admiral Zektar watched the strange ship with growing anger. "They dare to enter our space without permission. Send them a message. Tell them to surrender, immediately, or be destroyed." The communications officer sent the message in several languages used by known species. On the human ship, Dr. Foster listened carefully. "Captain, they're demanding we surrender. Their tone suggests they consider this their territory." Captain Morrison thought for a moment. "Send a response. Tell them we come in peace and request safe passage through their space. Make it clear we mean no harm." Dr. Foster worked quickly to translate the message into the alien language. She sent it on the same frequencies the aliens had used. Admiral Zektar listened to the reply and grew even angrier. "They refuse to surrender? How dare they? Do they not see our fleet?" "Perhaps they don't understand our power," General Crix suggested. "Then we'll show them," Zektar declared. "All ships open fire. Destroy that vessel." The order went out across the Galaxian fleet. 200 warships fired at once. Plasma bolts, energy beams, and explosive missiles filled the space around the human ship. The attack was so intense that nearby asteroids were vaporized by stray shots. On the human bridge, alarms sounded as the massive attack hit their shields. The crew watched their displays carefully. "Shield strength?" Captain Morrison asked calmly. 100%, Tony Chen reported. "Their weapons can't even scratch our shields." The Galaxians stared in shock as their most powerful attack had no effect. The human ship sat in space, completely undamaged. Its shields hadn't even flickered. "Impossible," Admiral Zektar whispered. "Our weapons destroyed the Vrex Armada last year. How can this one ship resist our entire fleet?" "Sir," the sensor officer said nervously, "the ship isn't even trying to dodge. It's just sitting there." On the human ship, Captain Morrison sighed. "Well, that answers the question about whether they're friendly." "Orders, sir?" Commander Hayes asked. Morrison looked at the tactical display showing all the alien ships still firing uselessly at their shields. "Dr. Foster, send another message. Tell them we still want to talk. Explain that we're explorers, not warriors." Dr. Foster sent the message, but the aliens kept firing. Their weapons heated up from continuous use, but they didn't stop. "Captain," Steve Parker said, "should we return fire?" "No," Morrison said firmly. "We don't know their culture yet. Maybe this is how they say hello." Admiral Zektar watched his fleet's weapons overheat one by one. Ships had to stop firing to cool down their systems. The human vessel remained perfectly undamaged. "Sir," General Crick said quietly, "perhaps we should consider their request to talk." "Never," Zektar roared. "No unknown ship enters Galaxian space without our permission. If our standard weapons won't work, we'll use the heavy platforms." Turned to his weapons officer. "Activate the planet killer cannons." The massive orbital platforms began charging their most powerful weapons. These guns could crack a planet's crust and had never failed to destroy any target. On the human ship, sensors detected the new energy buildup. "Captain," Tony Chen said, "they're charging some really big guns." Morrison nodded. "Well, I guess we'll see how serious they are about this." The conversation was interrupted by an urgent beep from Dr. Foster's station. "Captain, I'm picking up communications from their command ship. They're calling for reinforcements." Morrison frowned. "How many reinforcements?" "From what I can understand, all of them." Commander Lisa Hayes walked over to Captain Morrison's chair. Her voice was calm but concerned. "Jake, we need to follow first contact protocols, even if they're shooting at us." Morrison nodded. He had read the manual many times. When humans met a new species, they always tried to make peace first, even when that species was trying to kill them. "You're right, Lisa. Dr. Foster, open a channel on all frequencies. I want to talk to whoever's in charge over there." Dr. Amy Foster worked at her station, sending out signals on every radio band the aliens were using. "Channel open, Captain." Morrison stood up and faced the view screen. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the United Earth vessel Liberty. We are peaceful explorers from the Human Confederation. We mean you no harm and request permission to pass through your space." The message was translated and sent to the Galaxian fleet. On Admiral Zektar's command station, the communications officer played the message. "They claim to be peaceful," General Crick said, "but no peaceful ship could have shields that strong." Admiral Zektar paced back and forth on his bridge. His forearms gestured angrily. "It's a trick. They want us to lower our guard. No species has ever resisted our weapons." "Sir," the sensor officer called out, "new contact approaching. It's the Emperor's personal ship." A massive vessel dropped out of hyperspace. It was 3 times larger than any other ship in the fleet, covered in gold plating and weapon ports. Emperor Vexhan had come to see this impossible situation for himself. Emperor Vexhan was ancient, even by Galaxian standards. He had ruled for 200 years and conquered half the galaxy. His ship docked with Admiral Zektar's station, and soon the Emperor strode onto the bridge. "Show me this vessel that dares to mock our power," the Emperor commanded. The main screen focused on the human ship. It still sat calmly in space, ignoring the weapons fire that continued to bounce off its shields. "Have you tried the heavy cannons?" the Emperor asked. "We're charging them now, my lord," Admiral Zektar replied. With the Emperor came General Krondar, the Empire's greatest military mind. He studied the human ship carefully. Interesting design. I see no obvious weapon ports. Either they hide their weapons very well or what? The Emperor demanded. Or they're so confident in their defenses that they don't think they need weapons. On the human ship, Chief Engineer Tony Chen was explaining their defensive systems to the bridge crew. Our quantum shields use controlled fusion reactions to create an energy barrier. Their plasma weapons just feed more power into our shields. So, we're actually getting stronger, asked Communications Officer Rachel Martinez. She was a young woman from Texas who had joined the crew to see the galaxy. In a way, yes, Tony replied. As long as they keep shooting, our shields will stay at full power. Dr. Foster looked up from her language analysis. Captain, I'm learning more about their culture from their communications. They seem to be a warrior society. Fighting is very important to them. Any idea why they attacked us first? Commander Hayes asked. Near as I can tell, they think any unknown ship in their space is automatically an enemy. It's like they've never heard of peaceful contact. Captain Morrison considered this. Maybe they haven't. Maybe every species they've met has tried to fight them. That would explain a lot, Dr. Foster agreed. Their language has dozens of words for different types of warfare, but I can't find any words that mean peaceful negotiation. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker was watching his tactical display. Captain, those big platforms are almost done. Charging. Whatever they're planning to hit us with, it's going to be a lot stronger than what they've been using. Morrison nodded. Tony, are you worried? The engineer shook his head. Not really. Our shields can handle anything they're likely to have. The massive orbital platforms finished charging. Energy readings spiked across all sensors. These were weapons designed to destroy planets. Fire! Admiral Zektar commanded. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the platforms. Each beam carried enough power to boil an ocean. All 6 beams hit the human ship at the same time. The space around the Liberty filled with blinding light. When it faded, the human ship was still there, still undamaged, still not fighting back. On the Emperor's bridge, silence fell. Every Calaxian stared at their screens in disbelief. Nothing, whispered General Krondar. Our most powerful weapons did nothing. Emperor Vexhan's 4 hands clenched into fists. What manner of beings are these humans? Captain Morrison decided it was time to prove they weren't helpless. Steve, can you disable one of their patrol ships without hurting anyone? Easy, Captain. Their ships don't have shields worth mentioning. Do it. Make it obvious that we're being gentle. Steve Parker worked at his console. The Liberty had weapons that could destroy stars, but right now he used the smallest setting possible. A thin blue beam reached out and touched a Calaxian patrol ship. The alien vessel's engines died, its weapons powered down. Life support stayed on and the crew was unharmed, but the ship was completely helpless. Another one, Morrison ordered. A second patrol ship was disabled just as gently. Then a third. General Krondar watched in amazement. They could have destroyed those ships, instead they just turned off their engines. Why would they do that? Admiral Zektar asked. To send a message, the general replied. They're showing us they could destroy our entire fleet if they wanted to, but they're choosing not to. Dr. Foster was busy studying more Calaxian communications. Captain, I think I understand their culture better now. They respect strength above everything else. But they've never seen anyone strong enough to choose. Mercy, what do you mean? Commander Hayes asked. In their society, if you can defeat an enemy, you destroy them completely. The idea of being strong enough to win but choosing not to fight, it doesn't exist in their culture. Morrison thought about this. So by not destroying their ships, we're confusing them. More than confusing them, we're doing something they thought was impossible. Communications Officer Rachel Martinez looked up from her station. Captain, I'm intercepting more of their signals. They're calling for reinforcements from across their empire. How many reinforcements? Morrison asked. Rachel listened carefully to the alien chatter. It sounds like all of them, every ship they have. Tony Chen shook his head. They really don't understand what they're dealing with. Emperor Vexhan was having the same realization. He turned to Admiral Zektar. Send word to every fleet commander in the Empire. Tell them to come here immediately. Bring every ship, every weapon, everything we have. My lord, General Krondar said carefully. Perhaps we should try to communicate with them again. No, the Emperor roared. No unknown species will make fools of the Calaxian Empire. If one ship can resist our defenses, then we'll bring enough ships to overwhelm any defense. Admiral Zektar bowed. It will be done, my lord, but it will take time for all our fleets to arrive. Then we wait, the Emperor said, and we keep shooting. I want that ship to know we haven't given up. Captain Morrison watched as more Calaxian ships continued their useless attack. Dr. Foster, send them another message. Tell them we're still willing to talk. Explain that we don't want to fight. The message was sent, but the aliens ignored it. They kept firing their weapons even though it accomplished nothing. Stubborn, Commander Hayes observed. Proud, Morrison corrected. They can't admit they're outmatched, not yet. How long do we wait? Steve Parker asked. Morrison looked at the tactical display showing hundreds more ships jumping into the system. As long as it takes. Emperor Vexhan stood in his private chambers aboard his flagship, staring out at the human vessel that had made his entire military look weak. In 200 years of rule, no one had ever humiliated him like this. A single alien ship was ignoring his most powerful weapons. My lord, General Krondar entered the room carefully. The fleet reports are coming in. How many ships? The Emperor asked, without turning around. Over 1,000 so far, more arriving every hour. Admiral Zeth is bringing the third battle fleet from the core worlds. Admiral Vorth is coming with the Dreadnought Squadron from the Outer Rim. Vexhan finally turned around. His ancient face was filled with cold anger. Good. This human ship may have strong shields, but nothing can resist the entire might of our empire. General Krondar hesitated. My lord, perhaps we should consider their offer to negotiate. Never. The Emperor's four fists slammed down on his desk. The Calaxian Empire does not negotiate with invaders. We have conquered 47 worlds and destroyed 6 species completely. We will not show weakness now. On the human ship, Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker was studying his tactical display with growing concern. Captain, we now have over 1,000 alien ships surrounding us, and more keep arriving. Captain Morrison walked over to look at the display. Red dots filled the screen, each one representing an enemy warship. That's a lot of firepower. Chief Engineer Tony Chen looked up from his station. Captain, I'm reading some strange energy signatures from the newer ships. Some of them have weapons I've never seen before. Dangerous? Morrison asked. Hard to say, but they're definitely more advanced than what we've been facing. Dr. Amy Foster was listening to the alien communications with growing worry. Captain, I'm picking up some disturbing transmissions. They're talking about total annihilation and complete destruction of the invaders. Communications Officer Rachel Martinez nodded. I'm hearing the same thing. They're not just trying to capture us anymore, they want to destroy us completely. Commander Lisa Hayes studied the tactical situation. Jake, they've got enough ships out there to destroy a planet. Maybe we should consider leaving. Morrison shook his head. If we run now, they'll think we were just testing their defenses. They might attack other human ships later. So what do? Steve Parker asked. We stay and try to make them understand that we're not their enemies. On Admiral Zektar's command station, the Emperor was meeting with his top military commanders. The holographic display showed the human ship surrounded by the largest fleet ever assembled in Calaxian history. Report, the Emperor commanded. Admiral Zeth, commander of the 3rd Battle Fleet, stepped forward. He was younger than most admirals, known for his aggressive tactics. My lord, I have 200 heavy cruisers and 50 dreadnoughts ready for battle. My ships carry Nova torpedoes and antimatter charges. Admiral Vorth was next. She was an older woman, scarred from many battles. The Dreadnought Squadron is in position, 20 of our most powerful ships, including the planet killers from the Siege of Xeron. Excellent, the Emperor said. What about exotic weapons? General Krondar activated another display. We have ships equipped with gravitational disruptors, quantum scramblers, and reality warpers. If their shields can resist conventional weapons, perhaps these will work." The Emperor smiled coldly. "Begin the attack. Use everything. I want that ship reduced to atoms." The order went out across the massive fleet. Over 1,000 ships began charging their weapons. The space around Nexus Prime filled with energy as the greatest military force in Calaxian history prepared to fire. On the human ship, alarms began sounding. Tony Chen's voice was tense for the first time. "Captain, they're powering up some really exotic weapons. I'm reading gravitational distortions, quantum flux generators, and something that's actually bending space-time." Morrison felt a chill. "Can our shields handle that?" "I think so, but this is going to be the biggest test our defensive systems have ever faced." Dr. Foster looked up from her translation work. "Captain, they're broadcasting on all frequencies. It's a formal declaration of war. They're calling us the greatest threat our empire has ever faced, and promising to cleanse the galaxy of the human plague." "Charming," Commander Hayes muttered. The Emperor's voice boomed across the fleet communications. "Warriors of the Calaxian Empire, today we face an enemy unlike any we have fought before. They mock our strength and ignore our power. Show them the price of defying our rule. Attack!" 1,000 ships fired at once. The attack was beyond anything ever seen in galactic history. Nova torpedoes that could destroy moons mixed with antimatter charges and exotic energy weapons. Gravitational waves warped space itself. Quantum scramblers tried to tear apart the human ship at the molecular level. The human vessel disappeared in a ball of pure energy. The attack was so intense that it created its own gravity well. Space-time twisted and bent around the impact point. Every Calaxian watched their screens, waiting for the energy to fade and reveal the destruction of their enemy. The energy slowly cleared. The human ship sat exactly where it had been before. Not a scratch on its hull. Its shields hadn't even dimmed. Silence fell across the Calaxian fleet. Over 1,000 of their most powerful ships had just fired their strongest weapons at a single target, and accomplished nothing. "Impossible," Admiral Zeth whispered. "Our quantum scramblers should have torn apart their molecular structure." Admiral Vorth said in disbelief. "The gravitational disruptors should have crushed their ship into a black hole," another admiral added. On the human bridge, Tony Chen was checking his readings carefully. "Shields holding at 100%. Actually, they're reading 103% now." "What do you mean?" Morrison asked. "Their exotic weapons are actually feeding more energy into our fusion matrix. We're stronger now than when they started shooting." Steve Parker shook his head in amazement. "So the harder they hit us, the stronger we get?" "Pretty much, yes." "Captain," Morrison made a decision. "It's time to show them what we can really do. But I want 0 casualties." "Understood, Captain," Parker replied. Morrison turned to his communications officer. "Rachel, send a message to their leader. Tell him I want to talk right now." The message was translated and sent to the Emperor's flagship. Emperor Vexhan read it with growing fury. "They still want to talk? After we just hit them with everything we have?" General Krondar looked at the tactical display. The human ship's energy readings were actually higher than before the attack. "My lord, I think they're trying to tell us something." "What?" "That we can't hurt them. No matter what we do, we can't even damage their ship." Admiral Zektar stepped forward. "Perhaps we should listen to what they have to say." The Emperor turned on him with rage. "Listen? To invaders who mock our power? Never." "But my lord," General Krondar said carefully, "what if they're not invaders? What if they really are explorers as they claim? Then why do they have such powerful defenses?" The general paused. "Perhaps because they've met other species, like us, species that attack first and ask questions later." The Emperor considered this. Around him, his admirals and generals waited nervously. The entire Calaxian military had just failed to scratch a single enemy ship. "Sir," the communications officer called out. "The human ship is sending another message." "What do they say?" the Emperor asked. "They're asking permission to demonstrate something. They say they want to show us human military doctrine without harming anyone. Admiral Vorth frowned. What kind of demonstration? Before anyone could answer, the human ship began to move. It had been sitting motionless for hours, but now it started to accelerate. Not toward the Calaxian fleet, but away from it. Where are they going? Admiral Zeth asked. The human ship moved to a position several million kilometers away from the fleet. Then it stopped and sent another message. They're asking us to watch their starboard side, the communications officer reported. Every Calaxian ship turned its sensors toward the human vessel. What they saw made no sense. The side of the ship was opening up, revealing massive internal structures that definitely weren't there before. How is that possible? General Krondar asked. Their ship isn't big enough to hold whatever that is. The structures continued to emerge from the human ship. They looked like weapon platforms, but on a scale that defied physics. Each platform was larger than a Calaxian dreadnought. Tony Chen's voice was calm as he reported to Captain Morrison. Weapons deployment complete. All systems ready. Morrison nodded. Target their weapon systems only. I want every ship in that fleet disarmed but unharmed. Understood, Captain. Captain Morrison stood quietly on his bridge, looking at the massive Calaxian fleet that surrounded his ship. Over 1,000 alien warships, all with weapons pointed at him. All ready to fire again. Steve, begin the demonstration, he said, calmly. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker's hands moved over his tactical controls. Engaging stealth systems. On every Calaxian ship, sensors suddenly went blank. The human vessel simply vanished. Not destroyed, not jumped to hyperspace. It just disappeared from all detection systems. Where did it go? Admiral Zeth demanded on his flagship. Unknown, sir, his sensor officer replied, panic in his voice. It's not on any frequency. No heat signature, no gravitational distortion, nothing. Across the fleet, similar reports came in. The human ship had become completely invisible to Calaxian technology. Emperor Vexhan stared at his empty screens. How is this possible? General Krondar was studying the readings carefully. My lord, it's like the ship stopped existing. But that's impossible. Unless, Admiral Vorth said slowly, their technology is so far beyond ours that they can bend reality itself. The Emperor was about to respond when his weapons officer called out in alarm. Sir, our main guns are powering down. What? Why? I don't know. The systems are just shutting down on their own. Similar reports came from across the fleet. One by one, every weapon system on every Calaxian ship simply stopped working. Not damaged, not destroyed, just turned off. Admiral Zeth's flagship lost its weapons next. Then Admiral Vorth's dreadnoughts. Within minutes, over 1,000 warships were completely defenseless. This is impossible, Admiral Zektar said on his command station. Our weapons are hardened against all known forms of electronic warfare. Known forms, General Krondar replied quietly. On the human ship, which was still invisible to Calaxian sensors, Chief Engineer Tony Chen was coordinating the operation. Weapons neutralization complete, Captain. Every ship in their fleet is disarmed. Dr. Amy Foster looked up from her translation station. Captain, they're sending frantic communications to each other. They can't understand how we're doing this. Communications Officer Rachel Martinez was monitoring multiple frequencies. They're scared, really scared. Some of them are talking about retreating. Captain Morrison nodded. Steve, disable their engines too, but keep life support working. Yes, sir. Across the Calaxian fleet, engines began shutting down. The massive warships that had been maneuvering into attack positions suddenly found themselves drifting helplessly in space. Emperor Vexhan watched in horror as his entire military force became helpless. Get me a damage report. No damage, my lord, his engineering officer reported. All systems are intact. They're just turned off, and we can't turn them back on. How many ships still have power? The officer checked his screens. Life support is working on all ships. Communications are still active. but weapons and engines are completely dead across the entire fleet. General Krondar was beginning to understand. They're not trying to destroy us. They're showing us that they could, but they're choosing not to. What do you mean? The Emperor demanded. Think about it, my lord. They could have destroyed our ships instead of just disabling them. They could have cut our life support and let us all die. Instead, they made sure we're safe while showing us how helpless we are. Admiral Vorth was coming to the same conclusion, on her ship. They're treating us like children playing with dangerous toys, taking away our weapons but making sure we don't get hurt. The human ship suddenly reappeared exactly where it had been before. It sent another message to the Galaxian fleet. Dr. Foster translated the message for Captain Morrison. They're asking what the demonstration proved. Morrison thought for a moment. Send this message. Human military doctrine is overwhelming technological superiority, used with absolute restraint to minimize casualties. We seek peaceful contact with all intelligent species. The message was sent to the Galaxian fleet. Emperor Vexon read it several times before he began to understand what it meant. They could have killed us all, he said slowly. Yes, my lord. General Krondar agreed. Their technology is so advanced that our entire military is like stone, tools compared to their weapons. But they didn't kill us. No, my lord. They chose mercy. Admiral Zektar was having trouble accepting this. No species is that powerful, and no species that powerful would show mercy to their enemies. The humans just did both, General Krondar pointed out. On the human ship, Dr. Foster was sharing more information she had learned about the aliens. Captain, I've been studying their culture and history. The Galaxians have conquered dozens of worlds, but they've done it through overwhelming force. They've never met anyone who could match their military power. And they've never had anyone show them mercy when they could have been destroyed, Commander Hayes added. Morrison nodded. That explains why they're so confused. We're doing something that doesn't exist in their experience. Captain, Rachel Martinez called out. I'm detecting a ship breaking formation from the main fleet. It's heading straight for us. Steve Parker checked his tactical display. It's Admiral Zektar's command ship, and he's armed it with some kind of explosive device. A kamikaze run, Morrison realized. He'd rather die than accept defeat. Orders, sir? Parker asked. Morrison stood. I'm going over there. What? Commander Hayes stared at him. Jake, that's suicide. No, Lisa, it's diplomacy. Morrison turned to his crew. Tony, prepare a shuttle. Steve, you're with me. Rachel, keep monitoring their communications. Captain, Dr. Foster said urgently. Their culture values honor above life. Admiral Zektar would rather die than admit his weapons are useless. Then we'll have to show him there's honor in survival too. Captain Morrison and Lieutenant Commander Parker took a small shuttle from the Liberty. The shuttle was fast and well-armed but tiny compared to the massive Galaxian warship bearing down on them. Admiral Zektar sat on his bridge watching the human shuttle approach. They're trying to stop me? 2 humans against a ship with 500 crew members? Sir, his weapons officer said nervously. Our weapons are still disabled. I don't need weapons, Zektar replied. I'll ram their shuttle and then crash into their ship. The shuttle reached Zektar's ship and attached itself to the hull. Admiral Zektar stared in disbelief as the humans somehow cut through his armor and entered his ship. Captain Morrison and Steve Parker moved through the Galaxian ship quickly. Their equipment told them where the bridge was, and their personal shields protected them from the ship's security systems. They found Admiral Zektar on his bridge, along with his entire command crew. The Galaxians were large and intimidating with their gray skin and 4 arms, but Morrison walked calmly up to the Admiral. Admiral Zektar, Morrison said, using the translator device Dr. Foster had given him. Your ship's life support is failing. We're here to help. Zektar stared at the humans. Help? You've defeated my entire fleet and now you want to help me? Yes, Morrison replied simply. Steve Parker was already working with his equipment, checking the ship's systems. Captain, they've overloaded their reactor trying to arm that explosive device. Life support will fail in 10 minutes. Morrison turned back to Admiral Zektar. We can fix your ship and save your crew. All we ask is that you stop trying to kill yourself." The Admiral looked around at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting to see what he would do. He had never met enemies who would risk their lives to save him. "Why?" he asked finally. Morrison smiled. "Because that's what humans do." 3 days later, Emperor Vexhan sat across from Captain Morrison in a conference room that hadn't existed before. The humans had built it in space using machines that seemed to create matter from energy. The room was neutral territory, belonging to neither species. Dr. Amy Foster sat beside Captain Morrison, serving as translator and cultural advisor. She had spent the last 3 days learning everything she could about Galaxian society. "Your Majesty," Morrison began, "we need to discuss what happens next." Emperor Vexhan looked older than his 200 years. The events of the past few days had shaken everything he believed about power and warfare. "You defeated my entire military without killing a single person. How is this possible?" Dr. Foster translated carefully, then answered. "Captain Morrison's people have been traveling in space for over 300 years. They've met 47 different species and learned to avoid unnecessary violence." 47 species? The Emperor asked in amazement. "How many did you conquer?" "None," Morrison replied. "We invited 23 of them to join our confederation voluntarily. The others chose to remain independent, and we respect their decision." The Emperor struggled to understand this concept. "But if you have the power to conquer them, why don't you?" Morrison thought carefully about his answer. "Because conquest creates enemies. Partnership creates allies. We've learned that it's better to have friends than slaves." Dr. Foster added, "In human culture, true strength is shown by protecting others, not by dominating them." General Krondar, who was also present, leaned forward. "This confederation you speak of, what does it do?" "We explore space together," Morrison explained. "We share knowledge and technology. We help each other when problems arise. When we find new species, we offer them the same choice we're offering you." "And what choice is that?" Emperor Vexhan asked. Morrison looked directly at the ancient ruler. "Join us as equals. Your people are warriors and the galaxy needs warriors, but instead of conquering peaceful worlds, you could help us protect them." The Emperor was quiet for a long time. Finally he spoke. "My people have been conquerors for 1,000 years. It's all we know." "It doesn't have to be all you are," Dr. Foster said gently. "We've seen what your people can do when they work together. Imagine what they could accomplish if they used that unity to build instead of destroy." Back on the Liberty, Chief Engineer Tony Chen was meeting with a group of Galaxian engineers. He was showing them holographic displays of human technology. "This is a medical scanner," he explained through a translator. "It can detect diseases before symptoms appear and suggest treatments." The Galaxian chief engineer, a female named Texara, examined the display carefully. "This could save millions of lives on our worlds." "That's the idea," Tony replied. "We're willing to share this technology freely." "Freely? What do you want in return?" Tony smiled. "Nothing. When you save lives with this technology, that's payment." "Enough for us." Texara stared at him. "Your species gives away technology that could make you rich and powerful?" "We're already rich and powerful," Tony explained. "Now we want to help others become the same." On another part of the ship, Communications Officer Rachel Martinez was working with Galaxian communication specialists to set up long-range networks. These networks would connect the Galaxian Empire to the rest of the galactic community for the first time. "With these systems," Rachel explained, "you'll be able to talk to species on the other side of the galaxy instantly." The Galaxian officer, named Vecton, was amazed. "We could coordinate our entire empire in real time. Or you could learn about art and music from 100 different worlds," Rachel suggested. "Communication isn't just for military purposes." Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker was in the ship's training bay with several Galaxian military officers. He was showing them human combat techniques. "The key to human military doctrine," he explained, "is to end conflicts as quickly as possible, with minimum casualties." A young Galaxian officer named Kreldar asked, But how do you defeat an enemy without destroying them? By making it clear that resistance is useless, then offering them a better alternative, Steve replied. Like we did with your fleet. Kreldar thought about this. So you win by making your enemies want to become your friends? Exactly. Back in the conference room, Emperor Vexhan was making a difficult decision. If we join your confederation, what happens to our empire? It becomes part of something larger, Morrison explained. Your worlds keep their own governments and cultures, but you also become part of a galactic community. Dr. Foster added, think of it as expanding your empire peacefully instead of through conquest. And our military? The Emperor asked. Becomes part of the Confederation's defense force, Morrison replied. There are still dangerous species out there. Pirates, slavers, and worse. The galaxy needs protectors. General Krondar nodded slowly. We could use our strength to defend the weak instead of conquering them. That's exactly what we're suggesting, Morrison agreed. Emperor Vexhan stood up and walked to the window that showed the stars beyond. For 200 years I have ruled through fear and violence. You offer me a chance to rule through hope and cooperation. We offer you a chance to be remembered as the Emperor who brought peace to the galaxy, Dr. Foster said. The Emperor turned back to them. What would you need from us? Morrison smiled. A commitment to peaceful exploration and mutual defense. Access to your military expertise to help train Confederation forces. And patience while both our species learn to work together. And in return, access to technologies that will improve life for every person in your empire. Membership in a community of worlds that spans the galaxy. And the knowledge that your warriors are protecting billions of innocent lives. Emperor Vexhan was quiet for several minutes. When he finally spoke, his voice was firm. I accept your offer, Captain Morrison. The Calaxian Empire will join your confederation. 2 weeks later, the Liberty prepared to leave Nexus Prime. But now it wasn't traveling alone. 5 Calaxian ships had been chosen to accompany the human vessel on its continued exploration mission. Captain Morrison stood on his bridge, watching as the mixed fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. Admiral Zektar was now aboard one of the Calaxian ships working as a military advisor to the Confederation. It's strange, Commander Hayes observed. 3 weeks ago they were trying to kill us, and now they're going to help us explore the galaxy, Morrison replied. People can change when they're given the right opportunity. Dr. Foster looked up from her station. Captain, I just received a message from Emperor Vexhan. He's addressing his entire empire about the Alliance. What's he saying? Dr. Foster listened to the translation for a moment. He's telling them that the Calaxians have met the true apex predators of the galaxy, a species so powerful they choose mercy over dominance, so advanced they share knowledge freely, and so confident they turn enemies into allies. Tony Chen shook his head in amazement. 3 weeks ago we were just exploring. Now we've got an entire empire joining the Confederation. That's what exploration is really about, Morrison said. Not just discovering new worlds, but discovering new friends. Communications Officer Rachel Martinez announced. All ships report ready for jump, Captain. Morrison nodded. Take us out. Let's see what else is out there. The mixed fleet of human and Calaxian ships jumped to hyperspace together, heading deeper into unexplored space. Behind them, the Nexus defense grid that had never been breached now flew the flags of both the Calaxian Empire and the Human Confederation. On his flagship, Emperor Vexhan watched the fleet disappear into hyperspace. For the first time in 200 years, he felt hope instead of anger. His empire was now part of something larger, something better. General Krondar joined him at the observation deck. Do you think we made the right choice, my lord? The Emperor nodded. The humans could have destroyed us easily. Instead, they offered us friendship. That kind of power, used with that kind of wisdom, is worth following. And our people will learn that there's more honor in protecting the innocent than in conquering the helpless. Vexhan smiled. The galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place. As the fleet traveled through hyperspace toward new discoveries, both species began the long process of learning to work together. Human engineers shared their knowledge with Galaxian technicians. Galaxian warriors trained alongside human soldiers. Scientists from both civilizations worked together to unlock the mysteries of the universe. The war that had lasted 3 days would be remembered for centuries, not as a battle, but as the moment when two very different species learned that cooperation was stronger than conquest, and that the greatest victories came not from defeating enemies, but from making them into friends. In the vast darkness of space, the light of friendship burned brighter than any weapon ever could.